Welcome back to another edition of CRE Power Hour. We're again joined with Tony Torres, founder of Core 13 Capital. Tony, how you doing today?
Doing well. Thank you so much, George, for having me here, man. It's always great to see you.
All right. Well, here's our traditional lineup, Tony and I. So I'll forgo the welcome to the show because this is our show together. And let's just say, jump right into it. We're here today to talk about build to rent. Tony, tell us, what is build to rent and how does it differ from a more traditional build to sell model?
Yeah, absolutely. So build to rent it's not a new concept. There's this notion that it's been going around and it's brand new, but it is horizontal multifamily. So think of it like that. We're creating a subdivision that is geared towards renters. We're creating an asset that is still a commercial asset that is geared towards single family homes built for renters. So that is at its simplest form what we're doing. The homes that we typically see in build to sell are typically bigger square footage. They are more custom build that we see from the bigger box players like D.R. Horton, Mungo Homes, Ryan Homes. We are not building homes like that. We are building homes that are obviously single family in nature, but they are designed with the residential renter in mind. They're not designed as the primary residence type resident in mind for the sales side. So that's really the main difference. The other main difference is that a build to rent asset is still a commercial asset. It's valued based off its cash flows and its NOI. A single family house that you see in a subdivision is valued based off of its assessed value of the homes and comps around it. So there's a bit of a hang up there in understanding what the asset class really is. And that's what we're looking to do, is to build those in areas that are in need of housing, in need of single family housing, with a product that is going to fit the community really, really well.
Outstanding. And very helpful to remind people that this is a commercial asset, so you're not constrained by those comps. You are able to sell these homes on the basis of the actual cash flow generated because you are keeping this as a commercial asset. And I also like to point out that I like the way you pointed out that this is not something new, but it is something that's been given a lot of impetus from our current housing crisis. So people really need a place to stay, and you know that not everybody wants to be an apartment tenant. So tell us what's so very special about this build to rent niche.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that one thing that I try to look at it from is the perspective that like a great company does. You can't tell consumers that they have to buy something and then exactly what they will buy. And there's nothing different about our business. You know, we're in a renter's market. We're also in a need of housing. So instead of coming from the basis of you will rent and you will rent an apartment, we're providing value to the community that local municipalities want to see, but it also is an asset that provides residents the single family structure that they're looking for. They have a yard, they can have a garden, they can go outside and make memories with their kids. It gives them community and it gives them everything that they see in a traditional multifamily asset, but without having a resident on the top, bottom, and all other sides of you at the same time. So it gives you that peace of mind, that privacy, but operates just like a typical multifamily will.
Right. And at the same time, you get a lot of the amenities that you get from the multifamily. So I guess you could say it's really the best of both worlds.
It is. It is. And what I really like about it is that we're really making an impact on three different facets here. We make an impact on residents, we make an impact on investors, and we make an impact on missions and communities. So for residents, again, we're in a renter's market. There's people that they don't really want to sign a 30-year or even a 15-year note where they're tied to a home. You know, you can assume appreciation, you can't bank on appreciation. You can't bank on the fact that your housing value is going to go up. People also, we live in a more distributed world. People want the freedom to travel. They want the freedom to work from home, work from wherever they're at. They don't want to be tied to an asset for too long. So this asset class gives them the ability to live in their own home, private, quiet, but it also doesn't tie you down to a note for 15 to 30 years. Another thing is that our exit strategies are really, really cool. A typical multifamily asset, barring some different, scenarios, you got to sell the entire thing once it's built. You're not gonna sell it when there's a foundation in the ground or a street on the ground. That's it. With a build to rent asset, we can sell it at 3 different phases, or 4 if you want to count the refi into long-term perm debt. So the 3 phases typically that we see in a build to rent model are the acquisition, horizontal site development, and vertical development. And the cool thing about it is that we can exit at any point in there for a profit. So to make it simple, it's very much like building a house. You acquire the land, you get all the legal admin work done on the land, when that includes entitlement, engineering, architecture, all the legal matter that needs to take place to get the highest and best use to build. At that point, you've identified the highest and best use, and you could sell that theoretically to an institution. You could sell it to another horizontal developer for a profit. So then you could go into the horizontal site development, where you would put your roads, your curb and gutter, all your grades, your utilities in. Once you do that, you've increased the value of the asset again. At that point, if you would like to, you could theoretically sell that to a vertical developer, an institution, someone that would like to take it from that point on, not have to worry about land acquisition. They can just now build. Or you can go vertical, which is what we like to do, what we plan to do. You can build the homes, get them leased up in tranches. So we'll build 15 at a time, typically, get those leased up, then build the next 15, get them leased up. That's getting us closer and closer to stabilization. After that, we again can theoretically sell it for an even greater profit to an institution or a private investor looking to own a build to rent asset. So, or we can hold it. We can hold it for a few years, which is what we like to do. Cash flow that asset, really low CapEx, get into a nice permanent debt or agency debt, and hold it and make value for our residents, investors, and missions. So that's one thing I love about. Go ahead.
Yeah, so those first 3 stages you went through, that's basically any development project, right? You get your entitlements, permitting, you've got the horizontal development, and then you go vertical, you actually start to do your ground up construction. But what I really like is that you mentioned that there's some other things that you really can't do, right? If you're just building to sell, boom, you buy all the, you go through your 3 phases, and then you're going to sell it out. But the possibility to have a partial exit, right? I mean, you can sell some, you can rent others, you can decide how long you want to hold on, how stabilized you want the community to be before you sell it, etc. Or just hold as a cash flowing asset. I think that's very exciting.
It is. I mean, so, in a build to rent asset, you have multiple things that you can get into, and you can get into the minutia of them, of how you want to set it up. But you can individually plat them. Again, that's going to have some different tax and zoning implications. So I would consult with your local municipality on that. But you can individually plat them. You can keep the entire development as one large plat, and you could sell that off to an institution or a private investor. But really, the exit strategies are all profitable at each phase. That's the main point that I like to see. Typical multifamily, if you have 150 units and you got it garden style, you're going to have 8 buildings or so with 12 units apiece in them. You could sell one of those off or 2 of those off, and you could still hold the rest of it. But it's really not, it's not as well seen. Yeah. It's not as well known because there's some headaches that are involved in that. In build to rent, we can get through the entire 100% of each phase and sell it off for a profit. And then another cool thing about build to rent that I like, and this is any development, it will cost you less to build than it will to acquire, but you're still going to build the same value asset. So for example, our Foley asset, a $32 million project, that our raise on that is $2.5 million. That's it. On a typical $32 million project in an acquisition, you're going to pay $32 million, and your raise on that is going to be at least 10 to 12 million on that. So our equity injection is smaller, but it grows to an exponential level to reach that value that we would have at a $32 million project. So it's
Because you're adding value throughout each stage.
correct. Correct. I like to call it hockey stick returns because we gradually increase. And then when we start going vertical, we see that exponential increase up and to the right. So if you can envision a hockey stick laying on the ground, that's what we like to see. And that's what build to rent provides.
Love it. Yeah. Looking for that slap shot right into the net, Tony.
Absolutely.
Look forward to investing with you.
I
Now, I
appreciate
know you spoke about this already. There's some caveats here, and you mentioned you're not building what you would normally see. These are not like luxury homes. These are
No.
rental units.
Yep.
And I think, that was one of my hangups at first. I thought, well, look, why don't you just build apartments? You share walls and you have all these economies of scale. But again, you're building things that are designed to be optimal rental units.
Correct. So if you could imagine what a typical apartment unit looks like, don't get all the facets of like, oh, I would want an apartment unit to look like this, or I'd want it to look like that. Just take into your mind what it looks like. It's got a livable square footage. You're not going to build, 1-1 build to rent. You're not going to build a 1-1 house. That makes no sense. But 2-2s, 3-2s, 4-2s, you build them with the renter in mind. You're not going to have too much storage. You're not going to have no storage. You're going to have really rental grade appliances, stainless steel or whatever the market is dictating at that time, whether it be granite or, white shaker cabinets. But we're going to take basically the build out of an apartment unit, and we're going to have a very similar structure with a roof and a yard around it. That's what we're doing. Right. I see stuff all the time. I see articles about build outs of build to rent. The higher affluencies are moving into higher end build to rents, just like in apartments. Yeah. There's a higher end apartment complexes. But we're seeing that, co-working spaces put into build to rent facilities. You're going to have resident friendly clubhouses with a pool, with, a working space, a clubhouse that has TVs and coffee and computer access and business centers. All that's the same. There's property management on staff or on site. You're going to have maintenance there, just like everything in multifamily, except we're providing value to residents from a safety aspect, from an experience aspect of being quiet, safe community, but giving them all the amenities that we see in a traditional multifamily asset.
Yeah. So again, these are smaller things, like maybe 1,000 square feet. They're not too large. The yard may be smaller.
Yes.
And then you're getting the
correct.
typical apartment amenities, like you mentioned. It could be a co-working space. Could be, I didn't hear you mention a gym, but I'm sure that's got to be something commonly done. Pools, all the sorts of things you would expect. And then you can manage it like an apartment with on-site management. So yeah, I think it really solves a lot of problems very, very neatly. Well, one of the things I know about you, Tony, is that you are always up on the latest building technology. So what are your favorite new building technologies?
I think of one thing that comes to me is utilities. I'm a huge fan of green. If I can provide, residents with a power savings, they're just gonna love us more. So I don't know if that's really a building technology. It's more of a utility technology, but I love solar just because it can help your residents save money. And if they save money, they'll stay longer. That's just simple. Another cool thing that I've really been looking into is within the 3D printing space. Now, this is relatively new technology, but, I see that as being an option going forward. It typically takes a stick build. How long to build one house? Maybe 90 days. Right. 60 to 90 days?
At least, yeah, it can take months depending on labor in your area.
Yeah,
absolutely.
You can build a 3D
not 48 hours, that's for sure.
No, you can build a 3D printed home in 4 days. So, I see the value in that going forward. I don't know that we're making moves there, and there are people that are having success in it. I don't know how far we are from that becoming scaled to a widespread deal, but there's a lot of value there. And I just think that instead of looking at building technologies as a competition, I kind of look at it as a collaboration. Like, what can we do that's going to be really, really collaborative, that we can really pivot, but we add value to those that are in the current space right now by teaching them new technologies to equip them to continue success in their path. So anything green utility and anything new building material is what I really love.
Yeah, great stuff. So then maybe it'd be a good time to move into lending. This is a new space for many people. I know a lot of people that are interested in multifamily may be listening today, and maybe they're not as up on development. So tell us about some of the lending options behind the scenes, just in the most general way.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that a lot of times in a typical build, the typical lender that we see is we see a lot of people go through a bank where you'll get a lot of your lending based on cost injected into the project. But there are lenders out there that can lend on value creation. And, I don't want to get too specific. I want you to make sure that you consult with your local lender to see if that is something that is available to you. I'm also happy to take any calls and connections to maybe put you in touch with some people that I work with. But there's options out there, and I think that you should always just keep exploring opportunities to make your project more efficient. I think that build to rent offers so many. When you have a lot of exit strategies, you have a lot of value creation as well. You can't have one without the other. So if you've got exits, that means that you would only exit for a value. You wouldn't exit for a loss. You wouldn't want to do that. So if you can create value and you see that value is created, then that means that there are lenders out there that will lend on value. So I think that is something that we should be keen in on. And that's what we try to utilize in the build to rent space as much as we can. But obviously you also don't want to get into a position where you lose money either. So it's very tedious, and you want to just make sure that you pick the best instrument for you.
Yeah, excellent. And that second option you mentioned, loaning on the basis of the value created, as you mentioned, it's going to cost less to build than it would to acquire. And
Absolutely.
so you're certainly getting a much better deal. Essentially, you're getting the benefit of a newly, in a certain sense, appraised value at each stage.
Correct.
Yep.
And that's something that we like. And I had a friend of mine about a year ago tell me just something very simple that I already knew, but the way he put it was just something that I captured. I was able to comprehend it a little bit better. If you think about acquisitions right now, you can acquire an asset at a 4 cap. You can build at an 8 or 9 cap. In a time where we're always looking for higher cap rates because of the profitability, development makes a lot of sense. Because taking an asset that is raw dirt and turning it into a commercial asset, there's a lot of perceived risk, but that risk is mitigated by value creation through each phase.
Yeah, awesome. And I want to say that this is just our first in this sub-series of CRE Power Hour. We're here to talk about build to rent today. And this was really just build to rent 101, Tony. I think you did an awesome job of walking us through the basics. And I would just love to get back together with you in another week or so.
Absolutely.
Let's find a way we can go deeper. Maybe we'll pick one of your projects, or
Yeah.
maybe something more particular as a special topic. So definitely want to thank everybody for tuning in today. And Tony, if people want to find out more about build to rent, or maybe if they'd like to invest in a future upcoming project, where should they reach out to you?
You can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm always trying to add value to anyone and everyone on there. And then I will be putting more about our projects on there as well. And then I would just personally reach out, and I would just have a conversation with you and talk with you, and really just explain the investment process and the entire process of the build as well.
Great stuff, Tony. Thanks for coming on the show today.
Thank you, George. Always a pleasure.